So you're probably in science or technology class and you may be wondering what this is all about. Sometimes we get so focused and spend so much time in doing something that we forget what it's really all about. So as we get started with a new school year, I always like to go back to the basics and unpack why we are here. And I'm going to start by talking about a box. Now imagine that this box represents the school. When we open the box, we find that it's divided into a whole series of compartments. Each subject has a compartment and we go to each one of those to learn about that subject. Now there really are good reasons for why we compartmentalize subjects like this, but it does also have some problems. For example, you may have noticed that when you're writing an assignment for social science, your teacher might get upset when you spell all the words wrong. And when she fails you because she couldn't understand what you were trying to say, you object and say that the assignment was for social science and not for English. Now that's just a silly example, but it does show us that in reality, all the subjects we learn are related to each other in some way or another. And further than that, they are there to grow you in all areas of your life, so you can have a broad and balanced grounding for taking further into life. And I really believe that each subject can be more fun and interesting when we start to see how they relate to each other. But we also don't want to get too distracted with the way in which all these subjects link to one another, because sometimes we really just need to focus on understanding the main principle at hand. So let's get back into introducing science and technology and some of their closest subject friends. So the first subject we're going to have a look at is science. The word science comes from the Latin word scientia, meaning knowledge. So science is all about the discovery and development of knowledge on the universe and everything in it. Which makes science as a subject sound pretty big, right? And it really is. So here's another example of compartmentalizing things to make it more manageable. Science has been separated into 3 branches. And there are a huge number of specialist fields which fall into each branch. Natural science is one of the main branches and is the science we will be focusing on in class. We'll cover a broad overview of natural science, which is focused on stuff that can be observed, recorded, and repeated. Scientists like to use the word phenomena when they talk about scientifically studying stuff. And in order to do this kind of science, we need to use the scientific method. And that will be one of the main themes we'll be focusing on throughout the year. The next subject we're going to have a look at is technology. Now, technology takes the things we learn from science, which is our scientific knowledge, and uses it to solve problems and produce tools. These technological innovations are generally focused on meeting humanity's needs and wants and making life easier. So technological innovations are much more than just iPads and smartphones and computers and gadgets. Those are just great examples of applied technology. That is where technology practically ends up becoming useful to us. Our next subject doesn't have its own compartment as a subject, but it's everywhere when we know where to look. The Latin word design comes from designos, which means to draw, and it's also the word for where we get the English word signature from. So design is, at its core, focused on creating order in the world around us, primarily through planning by drawing. We'll unpack more about design as we go through the term, depending on what subject you're in. Right, so moving on from technology, we come to maths. Maths actually falls under one of the 3 main branches of science, the branch known as formal science. And I guess that's maybe why all the mathematicians I know have acted like they're in some way better than everyone else. Maths is really incredible because of how powerful it is as a tool for communicating information and for solving problems. In fact, it's been argued that maths is the closest thing that we can get to perfection in this world. Maths is so much a part of the scientific and technical subjects that it can't be separated from them. So for example, if you go a little bit behind the scenes in computers, all they understand is maths and numbers. So it's hugely important for us to have a good understanding of maths. One thing that I have to mention here is that I was that kid at school who groaned inwardly and sometimes outwardly when I had to do maths. It just didn't make sense to me. And some of the concepts are really hard to understand, and it does take time and practice to get good at maths. But one of the things that really helped me to change my attitude towards maths was when I started to look for where the concepts are used practically. And that's best seen in technology and in science and robotics and coding. And if you struggle with maths and you feel the same way that I did, then I really challenge you to try to do the same thing. So far, I've spoken a fair bit about compartments, saying that the different subjects we learn in school are all connected, but we break them into different subjects because it's often easier to order things that way. Now, engineering is not a subject that we have as a class, but it pops up a lot in the other subjects that we've looked at so far. And when we're aware of this, it's pretty cool to start spotting it. Okay, so what is engineering then? Well, engineering is the discipline of developing products and systems for the built environment. Engineering, like maths, also has its place under the branches of science and is known as an applied science. This is because it applies our scientific knowledge. It also uses technological innovations and design and maths, bringing them all together to transform the world around us. The word engineering again comes from Latin in the words ingenium, meaning cleverness, and ingenare, which means to contrive or to devise. That's it for now. I hope that you're starting to see how all these subjects are connected, and this short intro has got you excited about learning more. From here, we're going to go into an activity where you'll do some research to find some of the specialist fields that fall under each of the areas we have discussed.